Last week we discussed stage 1 and stage 2 for the unit on imperialism and nationalism. This week we need to talk about stage 3, our learning plan. I have a great mapping activity on imperialism that I do with my kids to introduce the unit.
Well, I always start with the crash course video on imperialism.
Can you send me a link to that video? I usually start with vocabulary, but maybe I'll do that first. On the other hand, I can also do an activity where we colonize my classroom and the kids experience the driving factors behind imperialism on a first-hand basis.
Don't forget we have that Socratic seminar on revolutions to work in too.
It seems to me like you have some good ideas for activities, but here's my concern. You've done such good work looking at standards and creating assessments, and I want your daily instruction to match up with our earlier discussions. So let's use Christine's mapping activity as an example to consider connections between assessment and instruction. Christine, will you explain the activity to everyone?
I give my students a map of the world and I have them use the textbook to label the countries that are infected by imperialism. Then they shade those areas in with different colors to show what country colonized them.
So what I'm seeing is that this has the potential to be a great introductory activity for the unit. But let's start at looking at this activity in comparison to the assessment plan. What assessment does it seem to support?
Well, I think it supports a summative unit test because we wrote questions about specific boundaries and colonized areas. This gives the student a visual representation of that.
Okay, good. So we know that this can align to our assessment plan, so let's evaluate it in terms of engagement and rigor. What level of revised Bloom's taxonomy or Webb's depth of knowledge does this achieve?
The lowest level?
Yeah, I agree with that. All they're doing is copying from the book.
Well, what if we gave them a map and asked them to circle all the areas that they would colonize if they were an imperial nation?
Oh, I like that. And then we can have them justify their reasons why in a class discussion. Okay guys, we've got 2 weeks to teach this unit. Let's look at our assessment plan and our no-do chart and see what kind of objectives we need to create to drive our daily learning plan.
Well, we want our kids to be able to read and analyze primary and secondary source documents. We want them to use them to support their claims and create arguments. I know they're going to have a Socratic seminar, but I'm worried about their ability to participate in large group discussion. They haven't really ever practiced that. Could we use some sort of collaborative reasoning session to give them practice making a claim and supporting with evidence in front of a small group?
Well, let's do that. Let's take the DBQ we have on imperialism in China and have them do it in a round-robin format. Then they can present their findings to their group, or each group could present to the class.
I like that. Maybe the objective for that lesson could be something like students will be able to read and analyze primary source documents in order to develop and support a claim.
What's evaluated in terms of rigor and engagement? What level of Bloom's taxonomy is this?
I think it's definitely creating, because they're writing their own claim, but I also think it's evaluating and analyzing, because they have to do that in order to write the claim.
Okay, so it's definitely rigorous, but will it engage our kids?
Well, maybe we could let them choose their groups, and then they could decide whether or not they would share with another group or in front of the whole class.
What about our kids that don't speak English? How can we personalize this for them?
Ooh, I was on Icurio the other day and found some documents in Spanish. Why don't we use those?